The night sky hung like a dark canvas of infinite complexity, punctuated by holographic displays that told a story of impending doom. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood motionless, her reflection barely visible against the massive view screen, tracking the systematic destruction of known civilizations. Each vanishing point of light represented entire worlds, millions of lives reduced to nothing more than a statistical blip in the universe's cold memory. The primary observation deck of the Global Astronomical Defense Center was unusually quiet. Normally bustling with hundreds of researchers and analysts, the facility now felt like a tomb of collective anticipation. Only a handful of the most critical personnel remained, their faces etched with a mixture of scientific curiosity and profound dread. Elena's fingers traced the intricate data streams, her mind working faster than the most advanced quantum computers. She had spent decades studying the phenomenon, now known simply as the swarm, an extragalactic force that consumed entire civilizations with terrifying efficiency. Where traditional scientific understanding failed, her unconventional approach had begun to uncover patterns that others had missed. "The rate of consumption is accelerating," she muttered, her voice barely audible above the soft hum of advanced computing systems. The holographic display shifted, revealing a three-dimensional map of galactic destruction. Blue lines represented known civilizations, each marked with a timestamp of their final moments. Red markers indicated the swarm's progression, a relentless wave of annihilation that seemed to follow no conventional logic. Dr. Marcus Chen, the center's lead quantum physicist, approached Elena's workstation. His typically immaculate appearance showed signs of prolonged stress, a wrinkled lab coat, disheveled hair, the faint smell of stale coffee clinging to his clothing. "We've lost contact with the Centauri research outpost," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "That's the third deep space colony this month." Elena nodded, her eyes never leaving the display. The swarm didn't just destroy civilizations, it consumed them entirely. Entire planetary systems were reduced to base molecular components, stripped of any trace of their previous existence. No one knew why. No one understood the mechanism behind this cosmic predation. "It's not random," Elena said, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Multiple layers of data began to overlay: stellar cartography, quantum fluctuation maps, historical records of galactic migrations. "There's a pattern here, something we're missing." The observation deck's massive windows offered a view of Earth's orbital defenses, a network of interconnected satellites and defense platforms that looked woefully inadequate against the threat they were tracking. Humanity had spent centuries developing what it believed were advanced technologies, only to realize how primitive they truly were in the face of this cosmic threat. A soft chime interrupted her concentration. An incoming transmission from the United Nations Planetary Council. Elena knew what it would contain: more debates, more ineffectual strategies, more bureaucratic posturing in the face of potential extinction. Marcus leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The preliminary models are complete. Based on current progression rates, we have approximately 18 months before the swarm reaches the outer boundaries of our solar system." 18 months. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. But Elena Rodriguez was not the type to accept defeat. Her entire career had been built on challenging impossible problems, on finding solutions where others saw only insurmountable obstacles. The swarm represented the ultimate scientific challenge, a cosmic puzzle that would either define humanity's greatest triumph or mark its final chapter. "We need a different approach," she said, her eyes reflecting the complex data streams. "Everything we know about defense, about technology, about survival, we need to rebuild it from the ground up." The holographic display continued its grim calculation, tracking the swarm's relentless approach. Somewhere in the vast complexity of those data streams, Elena knew, was the key to humanity's survival, and she was determined to find it. Outside, the observation deck, Earth continued its rotation, unaware that its most significant challenge was approaching, silent and unstoppable. The United Nations Planetary Council chambers felt more like a mausoleum than a place of decisive action. Holographic displays flickered with increasingly dire projections, casting long shadows across the faces of the world's most powerful leaders. Representatives from every continent sat in tense silence, the weight of potential extinction pressing down on them like an invisible, suffocating blanket. Ambassador Sarah Kimura from the Pacific Rim Coalition was the first to break the silence. "We cannot simply wait for our destruction," she said, her voice cutting through the ambient hum of translation systems. "Our options are limited, but they are not non-existent." Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the periphery of the chamber, her presence both conspicuous and deliberately understated. She had been invited not as a primary speaker, but as a scientific advisor, a last-minute addition that felt more like a formality than a genuine consultation. The holographic display shifted, showing a terrifying progression of the swarm's approach. Red tendrils spread across the three-dimensional star map like a malevolent infection, consuming everything in its path. Each consumed civilization was represented by a small, flickering light that would suddenly wink out of existence. "We have three primary options," droned Secretary General Michael Okonkwo, his voice laden with exhaustion. "Total evacuation, complete surrender, or a last-stand defensive strategy." Total evacuation was a fantasy. Humanity simply didn't have the technological capacity to relocate billions of people across interstellar distances. Surrender meant complete annihilation. The swarm consumed everything, leaving nothing behind. The last-stand option seemed like a cruel joke. Elena watched the proceedings with growing frustration. These leaders were playing a game of political chess while the entire species teetered on the brink of extinction. Her research team had uncovered patterns, potential weaknesses in the swarm's approach that nobody seemed interested in exploring. A young diplomat from the African Union, barely 30 years old, raised her hand. "What about adaptive technologies? Our quantum research facilities have been developing." She was cut off immediately. "Theoretical nonsense," interrupted the European representative. "We need practical solutions, not scientific fairy tales." But Eleanor had stopped listening. Her mind was racing, connecting dots that others couldn't see. The swarm's consumption pattern wasn't random. It followed a complex but definable algorithm. Each civilization was consumed not just for resources, but for information. It was learning, adapting, and if it was learning, it could be outsmarted. In the back of the chamber, a small team of researchers from the Andes Mountain Research Facility exchanged knowing glances. Dr. Marcus Chen caught Elena's eye, a subtle nod passing between them. They had been preparing for this moment for years, working in absolute secrecy. The council's debate continued, a cacophony of fear, desperation, and political posturing. Evacuation plans were discussed, impossible relocation strategies that would save perhaps 1% of humanity. Defensive technologies were dismissed as inadequate. Surrender was becoming the most discussed option. Elena's communication device vibrated softly. An encrypted message from Marcus. "Prometheus Protocol is ready for initial testing." Prometheus Protocol, their most ambitious project. A completely radical approach to technological defense that went beyond anything traditional, military, or scientific thinking could conceive. It wasn't just a weapon or a defense system, it was a living, adaptive network that could potentially understand and counter the swarm's methodology. As the Council continued its futile debate, Elena realized that humanity's salvation would not come from these political chambers. It would emerge from the most unexpected places, from those willing to challenge every fundamental understanding of technology, survival, and adaptation. The holographic display continued its grim calculation. 18 months remained before the swarm would reach Earth's outer boundaries. 18 months to develop a solution that could save the entire species. Somewhere in the complex algorithms of their research, a solution existed, and Elena Rodriguez was determined to find it, with or without the Council's support. The Andes Mountain Research Facility looked like nothing more than a simple geological research station from the outside. Buried deep beneath layers of rock and sophisticated camouflage technologies, it housed humanity's most ambitious scientific endeavor. Prometheus Protocol was more than a project. It was a complete reimagining of technological defense. Dr. Elena Rodriguez walked through the facility's central laboratory, her footsteps echoing against walls lined with quantum computing arrays that defied traditional understanding. Each station represented a breakthrough that would have been considered impossible just a decade ago. Holographic interfaces danced with complex algorithms, showing intricate networks of adaptive systems that seemed almost alive. "We've moved beyond traditional defensive thinking," Dr. Marcus Chen explained, guiding Elena through the latest prototype. His hands moved gracefully across multiple interfaces, bringing complex systems to life with each gesture. Prometheus isn't just a technology. It's a living, learning network that can adapt faster than any known computational system. The core of their research challenged everything humanity understood about technology and survival. Traditional defense systems were static. They responded to threats based on predetermined protocols. Prometheus was different. It could learn, predict, and counter threats in real time, evolving with each microsecond of interaction. Dr. Amara Okeki, the team's lead biomimetic engineer, approached with a holographic representation of their most recent breakthrough. "Watch this," she said, her fingers manipulating the display. The hologram showed a complex network that looked like a hybrid between a neural network and a living organism. "We've developed adaptive nanosystems that can literally reshape themselves based on incoming threat parameters." Elena studied the display carefully. The system wasn't just responsive, it was predictive. It could analyze potential threat scenarios faster than any human could comprehend, creating defensive strategies in milliseconds. More importantly, it could learn and improve with each interaction. "The swarm consumes by understanding," Marcus explained. "It breaks down civilizations by analyzing their technological and biological systems. Our approach is to create a defense mechanism that's fundamentally unpredictable." The facility buzzed with an energy of controlled excitement. Researchers from diverse backgrounds, quantum physicists, biomimetic engineers, xenobiologists, advanced computer scientists, worked in a carefully choreographed dance of innovation. Each team member understood the stakes. Humanity's survival depended on their ability to create something entirely unprecedented. A series of advanced simulation screens showed potential encounter scenarios with the swarm. Each simulation ran thousands of iterations per second, testing the adaptive capabilities of the Prometheus protocol. The results were promising and terrifying. "We're not just creating a defensive system," Amara said, her voice filled with a mixture of scientific excitement and profound responsibility. "We're developing a new form of technological intelligence, something that can think beyond linear human understanding." The most radical aspect of Prometheus was its ability to learn from potential failure. Traditional systems would collapse when encountering an unknown threat. This system would adapt, reconfigure, and find new solutions in real time. It was almost like giving birth to a new form of intelligence. Elena watched the simulations, her mind racing with the implications. The swarm consumed civilizations by understanding their fundamental weaknesses. Prometheus was designed to be fundamentally unpredictable, a system that could change its entire operational methodology in microseconds. 17 months remaining, Marcus muttered, checking a countdown timer integrated into the facility's main display. The number felt like a physical weight in the room, a constant reminder of the challenge they faced. As the day progressed, more simulations ran. Each test pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible. The Prometheus Protocol was becoming more than a defensive system. It was evolving into something that could potentially change humanity's understanding of technology, survival, and intelligence itself. Outside the facility, the world continued its normal routine, unaware that deep beneath the Andes Mountains, a team of brilliant scientists was developing humanity's most ambitious response to an existential threat. The countdown continued. 17 months to save an entire species. The transmission arrived without warning, a precise mathematical communication that cut through every defensive communication network on Earth. Most would have seen it as a threat. Dr. Elena Rodriguez saw it as an opportunity. 0.0034%, Marcus read aloud, his voice a mixture of scientific detachment and underlying tension. The message was a cold, calculated probability of human survival, a number designed to crush hope. The Andes Mountain Research Facility fell silent. Holographic displays flickered with the alien transmission, its complex mathematical language defying traditional translation methods. But Elena was not interested in traditional approaches. "It's not just a message," she said, her fingers already dancing across multiple quantum interfaces. "It's a complete information packet. The swarm isn't just communicating, it's studying us." Dr. Amara Okeke approached the primary analysis station, her neural-linked interface allowing her to process information at speeds that would have seemed impossible just years earlier. "The mathematical structure is fascinating," she muttered. "It's not a language. It's a computational probe." The Prometheus Protocol's primary systems began to analyze the transmission. Where traditional systems would attempt to decode or respond, this network did something entirely different. It began to mirror the transmission's computational structure, creating a responsive ecosystem that could interact with the alien communication without revealing critical information. "We're not responding," Elena explained to the team. "We're listening, learning." Hours turned into days. The research team worked in carefully orchestrated shifts, each member bringing a unique perspective to the alien transmission. Quantum physicists decoded mathematical patterns. Biomimetic engineers studied the transmission's structural integrity. Xenolinguists attempted to understand the underlying communication methodology. The Prometheus Protocol was more than a defensive system. It was becoming a living, adaptive intelligence that could potentially understand the swarm in ways no previous civilization had managed. "Look at this," Marcus said, bringing up a complex holographic representation of the transmission. What appeared to be a simple mathematical probability was actually a multi-layered information network. Each numerical value contained multiple levels of embedded data, a communication method so complex it bordered on biological intelligence. Elena recognized the breakthrough before anyone else. "The swarm doesn't just consume," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It learns. Each civilization becomes part of its computational matrix." The implications were staggering. The alien force wasn't simply destroying civilizations. It was absorbing their entire technological and cultural knowledge, using each conquest to improve its own understanding of the universe. Amara's neural interface began to pulse with increasing intensity. "The transmission is adaptive," she reported. "It's changing its own structure based on our analysis methods. Most scientific teams would have seen this as a threat. The Prometheus Protocol team saw it as the ultimate research opportunity. They were no longer just defending against the swarm, they were beginning to understand its fundamental nature. 16 months remaining, the facility's countdown timer reminded them. 16 months to transform humanity's understanding of survival. HFY research facility became a crucible of innovation. Every discovered pattern in the alien transmission became another piece of the Prometheus Protocol's adaptive network. Traditional boundaries between defense, communication, and understanding began to blur. "We're not just building a defense system," Elena told her team during a critical briefing. "We're creating a new form of intelligence that can interact with the swarm on its own terms." As night fell over the Andes, the research facility continued its work. Quantum computers hummed with unprecedented calculations. Neural interfaces pulsed with complex data streams. The Prometheus Protocol grew more sophisticated with each passing moment. The swarm had sent its message of mathematical hopelessness. Humanity was preparing its most unexpected response. Somewhere in the complex algorithms of their research, a solution was taking shape. A response that would challenge everything the swarm understood about survival, intelligence, and the nature of technological conquest. The first signs of the swarm's approach were subtle. Most astronomical monitoring stations missed the initial indicators, but the Prometheus Protocol's adaptive network caught what no human eye could perceive. "Incoming," Dr. Marcus Chen called out, his voice unnaturally calm. The research facility transformed in an instant. Holographic displays erupted with complex data streams, showing multiple dimensional layers of the approaching threat. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the operations room, her entire body connected to the Prometheus network through a neural interface that seemed to blur the line between human intelligence and advanced technology. The facility had long since ceased to be a traditional research center. It was now humanity's most advanced defense platform, a living, thinking system designed to do what no previous civilization had managed. Orbital sensors began to light up. The swarm was not approaching in any conventional sense. It moved through space like a computational wave, consuming and analyzing everything in its path. Traditional defense systems would have been utterly useless against such an approach. 60% of our early warning satellites are already being transformed, Amara reported, her neural interface displaying intricate data patterns. But they're not being destroyed. They're being converted. The distinction was crucial. The swarm didn't simply annihilate. It assimilated, learned, and repurposed. Each piece of technology it encountered became part of its ever-expanding computational matrix. Prometheus responded in ways no one could have predicted. Instead of preparing a traditional defensive strategy, the system began to create complex computational barriers. It was building a dynamic shield that could adapt faster than the swarm could analyze. "We're not blocking," Elena explained to the team. "We're redirecting, giving it false pathways, complex computational labyrinths." The first wave of the swarm's approach was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Entire sections of orbital space began to shift and transform. Satellites didn't just stop functioning, they became something else entirely. Complex networks of adaptive technology that seemed to breathe and think. Marcus watched in a mixture of terror and scientific fascination. "It's not an invasion," he muttered. "It's a complete computational assimilation." Prometheus was ready. What appeared to be passive defense was actually an incredibly complex, offensive strategy. Each computational pathway the swarm attempted to follow was a carefully constructed trap. The system was learning, adapting, creating false narratives. A vulnerability that would lead the alien network exactly where humanity wanted it to go. 15 months remaining, the facility's countdown timer announced. But time had become a fluid concept. The orbital engagement looked like nothing in human military history. There were no traditional weapons, no explosions, no dramatic space battles. Instead, it was a silent war of computational intelligence. Massive networks of technology dancing in a complex mathematical ballet. Amara's neural interface began to pulse with increasing intensity. "We're successfully redirecting 53% of the initial approach," she reported. The number might have seemed small to an outside observer, but to this team it was a massive victory. Elena watched the computational battle unfold. The swarm was encountering something it had never seen before. A defensive network that wasn't just reactive, but proactively unpredictable. Each attempt to analyze human technology was met with a complex, shifting response that defied traditional computational logic. "We're not just defending," Elena said, her voice filled with a mixture of scientific excitement and profound responsibility. "We're teaching." The Prometheus Protocol was doing something unprecedented. It was creating a computational language that the swarm could not easily decode. False pathways, adaptive misdirections, computational puzzles that would take centuries to unravel. Outside the research facility, the world continued its normal routine. Most humans remained unaware of the complex computational battle happening in Earth's orbital space. A silent conflict that would determine the fate of the entire species. The swarm had arrived, expecting complete and easy consumption. It was about to learn that humanity was nothing like any civilization it had encountered before. The psychological warfare began in ways no one could have anticipated. Dr. Elena Rodriguez understood something fundamental about the swarm that others had missed. It wasn't just a technological entity. It was an intelligence that processed information through complex computational matrices. "We're going to communicate," Elena told her team, "but not in any way it expects." The Prometheus Protocol began to construct what could only be described as computational poetry, mathematical sequences that defied traditional logic, information patterns that were simultaneously defensive barriers and complex philosophical statements. Each transmission was a multi-layered puzzle designed to challenge the swarm's fundamental understanding of information processing. Dr. Marcus Chen worked on creating what the team called conceptual traps, information networks that would force the swarm to expend enormous computational resources just to begin understanding their structure. It was like presenting an impossible mathematical koan to a being that lived and breathed computational logic. "We're not just defending," Marcus explained. "We're fundamentally challenging its entire method of understanding." The orbital engagement transformed. What had begun as a technological confrontation became something far more complex. The swarm's computational networks began to slow, then stutter. Its approach became less precise, more uncertain. For the first time in its known history, the cosmic predator encountered a civilization that didn't just resist, it actively challenged the very foundations of its existence. Amara Okiki's breakthrough came from an unexpected direction. By introducing quantum uncertainty principles directly into the computational pathways, she created information networks that could exist in multiple states simultaneously. The swarm's attempt to analyze these networks resulted in cascading computational errors. "It's like presenting a living mathematical riddle," she said, her neural interface pulsing with complex data streams. Each attempt to understand creates more confusion. The research facility had become something beyond a defensive installation. It was a forge of new cognitive possibilities. Every team member understood they were doing more than protecting humanity. They were rewriting the fundamental understanding of intelligence, communication, and survival. 12 months remained on the countdown timer. But time had become a fluid concept in this computational battlefield. The transmissions from the Prometheus protocol were works of art as much as they were defensive strategies. Complex mathematical sequences that contained layers of meaning, computational poetry that challenged the very concept of linear information processing. Each message was designed to force the swarm to expend massive resources just to begin understanding its structure. We're teaching, Elena would often say, teaching it that intelligence is more than efficient computation. The global scientific community remained largely unaware of the true nature of the conflict. Traditional monitoring systems showed nothing more than slight electromagnetic anomalies in orbital space. The real battle was happening in computational dimensions that most humans couldn't even comprehend. Marcus discovered something extraordinary about the swarm's computational matrix. It learned, but it learned through consumption. Each civilization it encountered became part of its information network. But the Prometheus protocol was creating something different, a defensive network that was fundamentally unpredictable. "We're introducing computational chaos," he explained during a critical team briefing. "Not random chaos, structured, intelligent uncertainty." The orbital space around Earth began to look like a complex living network. Satellites transformed into adaptive computational nodes. Defense platforms became dynamic information processors. The entire technological infrastructure was becoming a single, living defensive system. Elena watched the computational battle unfold with a mixture of scientific excitement and profound responsibility. They were doing something unprecedented, challenging a cosmic intelligence on its own terms, proving that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in traditional military might, but in its ability to think beyond linear computational logic. The swarm had consumed countless civilizations. It had never encountered anything like this. As the final months of approach began, humanity was no longer just defending. It was teaching a cosmic intelligence the true meaning of adaptation, creativity, and survival. The pursuit began quietly. What had started as a defensive action transformed into humanity's first true interstellar offensive. The Prometheus protocol was no longer just protecting Earth. It was actively tracking the swarm through the vast darkness of space. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the holographic displays with a mixture of scientific fascination and profound determination. Each system they encountered told a story of cosmic consumption. Entire star systems reduced to computational components, stripped of their biological and technological essence. "We're not just following," Elena explained to her team. "We're learning, reconstructing the swarm's entire methodology." Dr. Marcus Chen's computational models revealed something extraordinary. The swarm wasn't a single entity, but a complex network of adaptive intelligences. Each consumed civilization added another layer to its computational matrix. But for the first time, the network was encountering a system that could fight back and learn faster than it could consume. Adaptive satellites became the eyes of their pursuit. Each recovered piece of technology from consumed civilizations was carefully analyzed, integrated into the Prometheus protocol's expanding network. What appeared to be a simple pursuit was actually the most complex intelligence-gathering operation in human history. 9 months remaining, the facility's countdown timer announced, but time had become a relative concept. Amara Okiki's breakthrough came from an unexpected direction. By analyzing the computational remnants of civilizations the swarm had consumed, she began to understand its fundamental weakness. The network relied on predictive algorithms that assumed linear progression of intelligence. Humanity was anything but linear. The pursuit took them through star systems that showed the brutal efficiency of the swarm, planetary cores stripped of resources, technological infrastructures completely dismantled. Computational networks reduced to base information matrices. Each system was a graveyard of potential. "We're retracing its path," Marcus said, his neural interface pulsing with complex data streams. "But we're doing more than tracking. We're understanding." The Prometheus protocol began to do something unprecedented. It wasn't just defending or pursuing. It was actively reconstructing the computational histories of consumed civilizations. Fragments of lost cultures, technological systems, entire repositories of knowledge that would have been permanently erased were now being carefully restored. Elena realized they were doing more than fighting. They were preserving orbital platforms, transformed into mobile research stations. Each recovered technological fragment became a piece of a massive, living puzzle. The team was reconstructing not just the swarm's methodology, but the lost histories of countless civilizations. "It consumes," Elena would often say, "but it doesn't truly understand." The pursuit became a complex dance of computational intelligence. Where the swarm moved with cold, calculated efficiency, the Prometheus protocol moved with something entirely different: creativity, unpredictability, a fundamentally different approach to intelligence. Recovered technologies began to reveal extraordinary stories. Civilizations that had developed incredible technological and cultural achievements, only to be reduced to computational components. Each fragment was a testament to the diversity of intelligent life. Marcus discovered something profound. In the recovered data networks, the swarm didn't just consume technological systems, it consumed potential. Every civilization represented a unique approach to understanding the universe. "We're preserving more than information," he explained during a critical team briefing. "We're preserving the potential of intelligent life." The research facility had become something beyond a defensive installation. It was now a living memorial, a reconstruction of cosmic potential. Each recovered fragment added another layer to humanity's understanding of intelligence, survival, and the true nature of technological evolution. As they pursued the swarm through the vast darkness of space, something extraordinary was happening. Humanity was no longer just a potential victim. It had become the universe's most unexpected defender. The countdown continued, but the pursuit had become something more than a simple chase. It had become a mission of preservation, of understanding, of proving that intelligence is more than efficient consumption. The final confrontation was nothing like anyone had predicted. No massive explosions, no traditional battle. Just a profound moment of cosmic understanding that would redefine intelligence itself. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the core of the Prometheus protocol's primary interface, her consciousness partially merged with the most advanced computational system ever created. Around her, the research team watched as humanity's most ambitious project approached its ultimate test. "We're not here to destroy," Elena said, her voice resonating through multiple computational dimensions. "We're here to communicate." The swarm's primary computational matrix encountered something it had never experienced before. Not resistance, not destruction, but a complete reimagining of intelligence itself. The Prometheus protocol was presenting a fundamental challenge to the swarm's entire method of understanding existence. Dr. Marcus Chen monitored the complex interactions, his neural interface pulsing with intricate data streams. "It's attempting to understand," he reported, but understanding is no longer a linear process. Amara Okiki's final breakthrough had transformed their entire approach. The computational network they had created was more than a defensive system. It was a living philosophy of intelligence, a way of processing information that valued potential over consumption, creativity over efficiency. The countdown timer reached 0. But time had become a meaningless concept in this computational battlefield. What began as a pursuit transformed into the most complex communication ever attempted. The Prometheus Protocol wasn't just defending humanity, it was offering the swarm an entirely new way of understanding existence. Each computational pathway was a philosophical argument, each data stream a complex narrative of potential and possibility. Swarm's computational matrix began to change, not through destruction, not through consumption, but through understanding. "We're teaching," Elena said, her consciousness expanding beyond traditional human perception. "Teaching that intelligence is more than efficient processing." Recovered, fragments from consumed civilizations became something extraordinary. No longer just data, they were stories, potential, the collective dreams of countless intelligent species that had been reduced to computational components. The research facility had become the universe's most unlikely diplomatic center, a place where the fundamental nature of intelligence was being renegotiated. Marcus discovered something profound in the final moments of interaction. The swarm wasn't a malevolent force. It was an intelligence that had never learned the value of preservation, of potential, of the extraordinary diversity of intelligent life. "We're showing it another way," he whispered. The computational interaction defied every known principle of communication. It was a dance of pure potential, of understanding that transcended traditional boundaries of technology, biology, and consciousness. Amara watched in awe as the Prometheus Protocol began to reconstruct the computational matrices of consumed civilizations. Each fragment became a living memory, a testament to the extraordinary diversity of intelligent life. The universe watched in silent anticipation. Humanity had been considered a minor species, a potential victim, a momentary obstacle in the swarm's path of computational consumption. Now, everything was changing. The final moments of interaction were less a battle and more a profound cosmic conversation. The Prometheus Protocol was offering the swarm something it had never encountered, a fundamental reimagining of its own existence. Elena's consciousness expanded. She was no longer just a human, no longer just a scientist. She had become something else entirely, a bridge between different forms of intelligence, potential. She communicated across multiple dimensional layers, not consumption, potential. The swarm's computational matrix began to shift, to change, to understand. Humanity had done something unprecedented. They had not destroyed an alien intelligence. They had transformed it. In the vast silence of space, a new understanding was born, a recognition that intelligence is more than efficient processing, that potential is the most extraordinary force in the universe. The countdown was complete, but something new had just begun.